Hey everybody, it's Brian here with Explosive Review. And it's been a while since I've brought you anything to do with paintball, but I still love the sport, so I thought I would bring you a sort of back to basics video today. Now, one of the most commonly common mistakes I see on the field is how people load their pods. Now, you might think, oh, it's obvious. You put the paintballs in, you close it over, it's done. Doesn't really matter. When in fact it does. It makes a huge amount of difference. So let me show you a few of the things that I see done. There's basically only two mistakes you can make, but I'm going to show them to you. So this right here, this is mistake number one, underfilled. See tons of people running around on the field doing that right there. Now, this can be a problem for two main reasons. Number one, you are liable to break paint inside the pod. You might think, oh, how would that possibly happen? But when you're running around, this thing starts shaking violently. Maybe you take a slide or a dive. You can easily break one of the balls in there, at which point putting it into your hopper is going to do much more harm than good. As well, if you're trying to sneak around, that can so easily give your position away. Now, the other mistake that I'm not going to demonstrate, because I'll probably break a ball doing it, is overloading. I see people literally fill their pods so full that they can't get the lid shut properly. So it'll be all the way up here, and they'll be like trying to smush the paintballs down in, trying to close the lid over. Again, you're very liable to break a ball, or the other option is that you may end up just causing dimples and flat sides all over your paintballs, especially if they're going to be sitting in there for a little bit on a hot day. So what you want to do, you want to fill it up full like this. Then what you're going to do, take your hand, put it over the top, and give it a shake. This is going to let the paintballs settle down a little bit. Then what you do, start taking them out one at a time until you can sort of get just a very flat top. You want them to stick up a tiny, tiny little bit just over the top, just so that with some gentle pressure, you can get your pod lid shut. It's okay if they're sitting a little bit compressed. Now look, see that? Almost no sound, but again, they're not really being crushed in there at all. Just a very light pressure spread out over the whole pod. So that is how you properly load a pod with paintballs. Also, if you're playing on a hot day, wet day, especially, you want to make sure that you're rotating through your pods. Now, that doesn't mean you have to dump out your pod, repod it, anything like that. It just means that, let's say that primarily, let's say I carry 3 pods with me. I mainly reload with my left hand, so probably the pod on the far left of my pod belt is going to be the one that gets used most often. So instead of every time I go back, I just put a new pod in there, rotate them out. Move the ones that were over on the right side over to the left so that they're more likely to be used. You don't want to have a pod sitting in your pod pack for hours and hours and hours. I've seen times where people have done that. A little bit of moisture gets in and they literally have a fused tube where they can dump it out and it'll stay in the shape of the pod. So you want to make sure that doesn't happen. Also, just make sure that you got pods that aren't cracked and stuff like that. But anyways, back to basics. That is how you properly load a pod with paintballs. As always, this has been an Explosive Review. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment. Find me on Facebook at Explosive Review and Twitter at Explosive Review.